you got third place in the Bolt hackathon. So congratulations. That's a really
Thank you.
awesome achievement.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really unexpected, to be honest. I kind of wrote off the whole thing. Um, but yeah, ultimately I chose to watch the ceremony and like it all worked out in the end. But yeah, it was just it's been surreal actually since then.
What was the moment like when you were watching the live stream and you heard your project name?
Well, it was amazing. Like initially at the start of the stream, there was like an investor on who was also a judge, and him just mentioning my app's name, I was already like sending it. I was already pretty excited about that, like just a mention, because I was, not expecting obviously to win anything like in a competition with like 130,000 people. I just didn't think like, I wasn't arrogant enough to think that like, oh, I might just win, like I can imagine there's a lot of creative people or like great product people who are out there who are going to vibe code great products, which they did. But yeah, so like just them mentioning my app was amazing to begin with. And then we slowly crept up, the different prizes or whatnot. And I had my family around me. So like we were all getting excited for like what may or may not come. And then like ultimately like when it came to top three and I was announced for third, like yeah, it was just a great experience, obviously, to have that with my family around, and my brother's popping champagne out the window, and yeah, it was a crazy,
That's
crazy
awesome.
moment for
Okay.
sure.
That's cool. So you got to watch it with your family. Can you tell us about, I mean, what was the app? What did you do? And how did you come up with the concept?
Yeah, so I had built three different apps for this Bolt hackathon, and this hackathon took place over a whole month, so there was kind of time for that. The first app really wasn't a viable app, and like I had to dump it after like a week. Worked on another AI powered CRM for like 2 weeks of the hackathon, and that was an idea I'm still excited for, to be honest. But just the scope of the project was just way too big for like a 1 month hackathon, so I shelved it for that. And with 2 weeks left to go, I joined another hackathon in the meantime, so I needed an idea for that hackathon, this weekend hackathon. And I was just thinking, what are problems that I experience, as a vibe coder and whatnot, and like started realizing like how difficult it is, or how annoying it is rather, to manage API keys, right? Like for a new builder, and that like even for experienced builders and everything, like everyone does it very differently. How they store their keys, how do they manage the security around their keys, how do they manage rotating those keys, for example. So those are all things I needed to learn as like a new vibe coder or a person making apps. So I wanted to build a API key manager essentially, and that's what I did for this hackathon. Didn't win anything at this weekend hack because it wasn't such a full product yet. But then I added like an analytics side to the platform. So the app in the end is called Keyhaven, and it's a API key manager and analytics platform. So on the one side of things, you can store your keys securely and set a rotation schedule, so you can get like email notifications or in-app notifications to rotate your keys and whatnot. But this other side of the app, the analytics side, is where um, with our app you can actually generate custom code and a script to integrate into your app, and it'll actually pull in all the API usage data that you're using into our app, and you can see all that information on our dashboard. So instead of having to go to like Stripe, for example, or Supabase or wherever you're generating API keys from, you can just see all that usage data in one place, which is our app Keyhaven.
That's brilliant. So, I guess just kind of setting some very basic context. What is for those that aren't familiar, like what is an API key? What's the point of it?
Gotcha. Well, an API is what two apps use to communicate with each other. That's the easiest way I've been able to explain it. Like, let's say you have a
Hmm.
website and you want tweets to appear on your website, you would need to integrate the Twitter API. And in order to use Twitter's API, for example, or X rather, to use X's API, you need to generate an API key, and that's how Twitter and yourself keep track of like this API usage and how you're using the API and how and whatnot, right? So that API key is like a password in a sense. Like it's very important for you to not lose your API key or like share that with anyone. Because let's say you're integrating an open AI API, for example, and someone gets your key, they can rack up a huge bill for you, for example. So
Hmm.
your API key is something really to take seriously, secure it properly, make sure you're not pushing that to front end code, for example.
So I'm sharing my screen now, and
Yeah.
I'm looking at your website, Keyhaven, and the domain was it Keyhaven dot something? I can't
Dot
see.
app. Yeah.
Dot app. Perfect. Okay, cool. So I want to bring some visuals into this conversation. All-in-one
Gotcha.
API key management analytics. So yes, this is you're absolutely right. Why would I say? Oh, I'm almost embarrassed to say that phrase now. I think that phrase is just completely embedded in my mind after using Claude so much.
I hear you.
I'll keep that in mind in the future. So yeah, so it's important to protect your API keys, but beyond that, there's analytics here, and I guess what is the how does that help? Like what's the point of that?
Mhm. Ultimately, analytics is important with your API. Like ultimately, as like a founder or someone who's building apps, I think it's important to keep track of what's going on your platform and ultimately how people are using your platform, so you can optimize for things, right? Because ultimately, APIs cost for the most part. Like there's very rarely a case where like an API doesn't have a charge attached to it. So you want to really acutely manage the usage, for example, and like then you can make a different adjustments and such. And with the analytics features we have, we can also look at, the security issues that you might be experiencing with your API. So let's say like you're going over thresholds, for example, that you've set or whatnot, that can all be tracked within our app. So for different reasons, I think you want to look at your analytics, whether that's for cost optimization, just have like an overview of like what kind of usage you're getting, but like across your APIs. But also, yeah, just for security reasons as well.
Mm-hmm. And so having one third place in the hackathon, is this app something that you intend to continue working on in the near term? Like, what's your plan with it?
Yeah, I'm pretty open to I'm gonna keep building onto it like now that we've won third and there's like a lot of attention on that platform. I personally think it's like a very niche app, so it's not
Yeah,
something that's like widely marketable in my
sure.
opinion. Like it's very dev focused and it's really hard to market to developers, as a lot of people will have found. Like I think developers for the most part, when they look at a product for them, they think, why couldn't I build this myself? um, which is completely fair.
Yeah,
And actually, I love
yeah.
that about development and like, that the people have the power to do that and people can just build stuff to fix their own problems. Because that's exactly what I'm doing right now, right? I'm using my vibe coding skills to fix problems that I'm experiencing. But there is like this whole new wave of builders, which are the vibe coders and people who are picking up development for the first time. And they might need a service like this. So I want to get it to a great place where people can really put their trust into something which is really security focused. So I want to build that out, get it to where it needs to be, iterate for like the users that we have now as well, and grow that out. But ultimately, I'm really passionate about creating mass market apps and also helping founders along the way. Yeah.
Got it. So sounds like you're certainly going to continue development of this product, but also have some concerns about its scalability just because of the how niche it is.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think there's like a lot of different competitor solutions, like whether they're some are open source, some are enterprise. I think like there's kind of like a product, like such a product in like different for different people. Like, whether it's like big companies, whether it's like developers who can like, work with open source software. I think like I want to position this app as, for the just like your go-to, easy to go to like option for like vibe coders or people who are new to development. Like they don't want to have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about the security so much and the nitty-gritty and like have us take care of that for them. But
Yeah. So
that really touches on like a lot of the API key manager side of things. I think the analytics side of things actually is useful for like a large breadth of people.
So I want to better understand the use case for this product since
Yeah,
I handle API keys myself, either in the environment local file or within this. I use Versal, and I just put the environment variables in there on the
gotcha.
on the server.
Yeah,
So with that type of setup, like where does something like Keyhaven play into that architecture?
gotcha. So that's like, I'll have a similar architecture for my apps as well. It's just like with Keyhaven. as far as like the storage side of things, it's a place where you can keep track of like what keys do you have for which service, and get access to those keys if need be, right? If you need to like copy paste it back into any of your environments and such, and your env files, it's there and easy to access. And we've added like different security features there to keep that secure. Like for
Hmm.
example, when you add an API key to what is essentially our password manager, right? Like there, you're required to set like a pass key to access those keys again. So adding like multiple layers to actually access your key again, and keep track of them. So that's like on the API manager side of things. On the analytics side of things, you'd want to integrate the script that you're able to custom generate, integrate that into your app, and then that pulls in API usage data into our dashboard.
Great. Amazing. And so, this was part of the Bolt hackathon. What was it like to use Bolt to make this?
Yeah. So Bolt is a beast of a of software, piece of software. Like I think it's incredible what you can create on Bolt, and I think like a lot of these like apps, these platforms get a bad rap, right? Because like ultimately they spin up great initial UX, but as soon as you try to obviously create any real functionality for your app, oftentimes vibe coders will find, right, everything breaks. Now you're starting to you're in bug hellhole and whatnot. But ultimately, I think like it's all about approach, and ultimately that's why I caution people with vibe coding. Like it's much easier than it was before doesn't mean it's easy, right? Like it's just a lot less difficult to build apps than it was before. I still think it requires like a large amount of prior knowledge to build functional products. Like I've had years, like 5+ years in tech, working in product, partnerships, community, different roles where I've been in and
Okay,
around product. So I feel like I'm
got
a
it.
very technical, non-technical person who understands how apps should be built and what's required from an app. So with that kind of background, I think I was able to use Bolt and sort of push the limits of what Bolt is capable of, which, whereas like a lot of people will be able to achieve like simple apps, like with prior knowledge, or if you really are gonna get stuck in and like wade through all the bugs, um, yeah, I think you're able to create some incredible things. Like I think with Keyhaven, the most impressive thing I found with Bolt was I was able to use a vibe coding tool to generate custom code, to create an app that generates custom code. That for me blew my mind when I first did it. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and so you did you have any development experience prior to becoming a vibe coder? Or I mean, obviously you were part of the tech ecosystem, but did you ever like learn to code at all or not at all?
Yes, I mean, I'm very familiar with your basic, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but nothing much more, right? Like I just didn't have the mind to like really sit down and like go through a boot camp or really try to teach myself how to code. So I really leaned into the non-technical side of things. But I've always been really passionate about products and building products and apps. I've always had
Mm.
like a running list of ideas of apps that I would build, and now able to really, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're similar in that sense. I've been building various sorts of technology products and apps, games for pretty much my whole life or most of my life, but I've never really fully committed to learning coding. I've dabbled in it, and so this came along, and I think similar to you, just kind of a huge unlock in my ability to create tech. So I'm very excited about it, and that's why we're here chatting. And it seems like you've gotten super deep into this as well. You've started Opzura, which is it seems to me like a vibe coding studio. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so Observer is a company that I've had for a couple years now. Like it started off as
Okay.
like an all encompassing agency where, we help companies and startups in the Web3 space primarily with their community building, social media, marketing, that kind of services. And then we
Mm-hmm.
pivoted to offering operations on demand services because I'm a very systems orientated guy. So I felt like a lot of startups actually fail because they have really poor systems, and which don't allow them to execute essentially. But towards the end of last year, I felt like services-based businesses are just going to get eaten up by AI. It's like seems very much the case, and it's like my thesis is playing out. So we actually pivoted from services and being an agency to actually building products. So now Observer is really focused on building one in-house products, and two, like if there's clients who might want to build apps or MVPs and such, we'd want to help service them and help them in that way. But really, right now, really focused on in-house apps.
I wanted to just briefly talk about some of the other projects, Chatbeam and SiteSnap. They seem interesting. Let's start with Chatbeam. This looks like a kind of a CRM that has some AI powered aspect to it.
Yep. So this was actually the second app that I started building for the Bolt Hackathon that was just like too big in scope for the Bolt Hackathon. But essentially, Chatbeam, the thinking behind this is I'm sure you're familiar with what's it called? Salesforce, HubSpot, like all these like huge like CRM platforms, right? And my thought was this software is like super bloated. Like there's very few companies that need uh all of Salesforce or all of HubSpot. And there's like this crazy like industry around like consultants who like companies hire just to train their staff on how to use HubSpot and Salesforce. And I was just thinking like, a CRM at the end of the day is just tables. Like tables and like a lot of different integrations and whatnot. So it's like crazy that this is like there's this bloated software that's making this much money and there's this whole sub industry of like what's it called, consultants. So I was just like an AI first interface for a CRM would be an amazing unlock for like medium-sized companies or small-sized companies where they aren't gonna spend that much money like on consultants to teach their staff on CRM. And ultimately, I think like the chat UI interacting with like a CRM is actually a much nicer experience than what you have now, where you're clicking through tables, and whatnot. So yeah, basically I created a CRM, but in the front end, or the main UI for it anyway, is like this chat box, and you can chat to
Wonderful.
and interact with the CRM with you know,
Sounds
the
great.
chat box.
It's interesting how chat has become a kind of universal interface,
Yeah.
and regardless of the use case or the the industry. So you're applying it to CRMs, which is sounds super useful. Is this something that you intend to pursue?
Yeah, I definitely want to build this out eventually. I think it's a slow burner in my opinion. Like CRM, like I was just saying how bloated like Salesforce and HubSpot are, but like in the end of the day, CRM is like a big piece of software that needs to be like built out, like if it's going to be useful. So I think it's going to be something I keep working on in the background while I work on like more like other apps in the meantime that are quicker to put out. For example, like I joined the Revenue Cat Shipathon hackathon
Mm-hmm.
this month. So I'm building like a mobile app at the moment, for example, like that's integrating Revenue Cat. So I'm working on that at the moment over this.
Oh, interesting. Well, this sounds very promising. I want to move
Yeah.
on to SiteSnap, which is at it's spelled with a C, CITE, snap.app is the domain name. And yeah, just tell us a little bit about this one.
So I'm doing a PhD in human rights law. So I have to like write a lot of documents, articles, my PhD dissertation in itself. So I'm always having to cite different academic documents, which is a pain. It's literally the thing I hate the most, like having to cite like these articles and journal articles that I write. And I know
Mm-hmm.
this is a pain point for like lots of students and whatnot. And I was playing around with like ChatGPT to see like how well it could cite uncited documents if you provide it with a bibliography and like different sources. Turns out can do a pretty decent job at that. So I recreated that process in an app essentially. So SiteSnap. So with SiteSnap, what you can do is upload an uncited document. You can upload your bibliography and you can upload different sources that you might have that you want to cite. You can select like the document type. You can select what citation style you want, and yeah, it'll cite your document essentially in whatever style you choose. and it'll even tell you like where it took the information, like why it's chosen the citation for a particular line, for example. So it gives you like reasoning for why it's not just citing randomly, it's actually citing using the bibliography and sources that you've provided. So it's been a handy tool for myself. But yeah, obviously when school opens up, hopefully it'll be a handy tool for a lot of students.
Brilliant. I love that you're building apps that solve a clear problem that you're experiencing, and then hopefully that's useful for more people. And the
I think that's
pricing
the
model
best
is
way.
very straightforward.
I think that is actually the best way for founders and builders to validate their ideas. Like, is it a problem that like you're experiencing yourself? Chances are like other people like are experiencing that problem and it's worth building. Like, I think people rake their brain for like, that unique problem, and it's just like there's ideas a dime a dozen. It's really just about execution and like, yeah, honestly, if you fix your own problems first, like before,
Hmm.
diving into someone else's problems.
Yeah, and the pricing model is straightforward. It's $5 per document.
Yeah.
I am curious. So I see the sources is optional. So if you do not include your sources or even your bibliography, does it find sources for you? Does it do research for you? Like, how does that work if you just provide it the document?
Yeah. So it's either or, so I've set it up so it's like either you have your bibliography or you have your sources or you have both. So if you just have your sources, then like you'll definitely have more accurate citations. Um, But if you upload your bibliography, like the AI is just going to use the bibliography that you've provided, like the sources you've provided, but it's not going to be best in terms of accuracy for citing. Yeah. Ideally, you're
Okay, I
uploading
see.
both your bibliography and sources because it's only just going to
Got it.
use either of those sources. It's not going to research and pull in or make up any sources. So, yeah, it's really about what you provided.
That makes a lot more
Yeah.
sense. I think when I saw the
Yeah.
two optional words here, that's what
Yeah.
sparked that question. But
Gotcha. Yeah.
that makes more sense than what I had in mind. Cool. Well, that sounds super interesting. And I guess yeah, the last thing I want to chat about, this was super interesting. So open economy, I saw this on your X page. What is this, and what's your role in it as well?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Open Economy team, and Open Economy is an incubator program in Kuala Lumpur. So we're running season two that's starting in September, but we've already done a season one, which is really exciting. And what we do is invite 40 founders to Kuala Lumpur, and we build for a whole month. Well, this season's a month. Season one was 8 weeks, but yeah, so 40 founders, all in Kuala Lumpur. We have like a great space to build from. We have like our team and guests who will come in and out and do different sessions and such. But we're really, taking in founders at all stages, right? Whether you're just idea stage or you're a bit further along, but we want to help you build your idea and startup and project and help you get your early users. And ultimately at the end, you have a shot at 100K in funding. So that's really exciting as well. But Kuala Lumpur is a great place to build from. It's like a buzzing place. It's cheap. And there's something that hits different when you're building with other people in real life. And yeah, 100K is always like a good shout for funding.
Yeah, I saw this and I actually got excited myself. It's something that I'm planning to apply to. I just had discovered it
Yes,
through your
bro.
page.
Come through. Let's go.
Cool.
That's hype.
So, chances are if you're listening or watching to this now, the deadline may have passed, but are you planning to uh have a maybe it's a little too early to say. Are you planning to have a season 3 or maybe
Yep.
not?
100%.
It's an
Like, we'll
ongoing
definitely
thing.
have a season three. Yeah, we're just seeing
Okay.
like how often, like how often would we want to do this during the year for it to be of real
Hmm.
value? Because I think at the end of the day, like it's all about like supporting founders and like helping like real builders, like put them in an environment where they're like most able to succeed ultimately, right? Like I think as builders and founders, it's super easy to be distracted in your usual environment and whatnot. And when you take a founder and builder out of that environment and put them in a space where they're surrounded by other builders, people who are like helping and advising them to get to where they want to be, there's like a different level of locked in that these
Yeah.
founders get
Yeah.
into, and like I think that's what you need ultimately. Like it's puts like a bit of urgency under you, which is really important. Like I vibe coded this other app called Ramen Economy. I don't know if you saw it maybe, but that kind of is kind of down that route, right? Like you know, founders like, if you have a job and you're building like your app or your startup, you're probably not building with the same urgency as someone who doesn't have a job, right? You're just like a bit more comfortable and like you're just like a little less urgency, right? So I built like Ramen Economy to like really see like if you were living solely on the MRR that you make, your monthly recurring revenue, would you be able to survive off ramen? Like, and that's like maybe the mindset like you kind of need to adopt as a builder, like, and get for that urgency, because it's like, well, yeah, you have this job that's great, like you're gonna not be living off ramen, but if you were just living on your MRR, like, it'd be different. Like, you'd be hustling, so that MRR is like as high as possible, right? So, yeah, ramen economy
I
is
resonate
like
with that.
for that, but it's kind of like it's kind of memey, but it's also like the thought behind it, right? Like I think founders should build with urgency.
Agreed. So the domain name for this one is openeconomy.xyz. And I'm curious, so you say that there's a shot at 100K. That is great. And I'm wondering if you could maybe share a little more details around that because like how does that work? Is what is your criteria? Okay, so you go through this program, hopefully you build something cool. Is there like a judging process? What's the criteria through which someone might get selected for that funding?
So we do have a demo day, where we'll be inviting different guests and to watch, and we'll be publicizing that in a big way as well. But ultimately, the demo day is not the end all and be all of whether you get funding or not. I think there's just a lot of things that go into whether you get funding or not. Like ultimately, we're looking at founder fit, like whether you have founder product fit, for example, if you've been able to achieve any level of product market fit. What's the strategy look like? What's the UI UX look like for your app? Like, what's the viability for this app in terms of investment, right? Like ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
like there's a lot of great ideas. How many of them actually need funding? How many of them actually need, because I honestly think some ideas are just best bootstrapped and like, they're able to grow to a certain size, but there's no need to actually inject it with all this money so that, and then have these high expectations of what this app can achieve. There's like ideas that should be foot bootstrapped and there's ideas that should be funded. So there's like all these different considerations that go into like which project might get funding or not. But it's also just not my decision alone.
Sure.
But it's
Understood.
obviously, yeah, there's just a lot of things that go into it, and I think the terms are always variable between the teams, right? Because like it might be a thing where it's like, okay, we really like what you're doing. Maybe you need to hit these milestones, and then we can have a conversation about, right? Um, so I think like first and foremost, like open campus is like an opportunity for founders to just like really just drop whatever they're doing, come to KL and like work on that idea, like, make that like, oh, I'm gonna do that someday. Do it like today, you're gonna come to Kuala Lumpur and just build that product, app, startup, get it to, a place where it's, you have users, you're talking to users and whatnot. And good to put yourself in a place where like, at the end of the month, like funding or not, you have a functional app that you can market and get users for, right? Like, that was my goal with the Bolt Hackathon, right? I didn't go into it thinking I'm gonna win this prize, I'm gonna do that. I use it as an excuse for a deadline, honestly. I just thought
Yep.
at the end of this
Same.
Bolt Hackathon, I'm gonna have a functional product that I'm gonna market and get users for, regardless if I win anything. And that's what happened. Like after we submitted for Bolt Hackathon and everything, yeah, I just went to work marketing it, right? Like and trying to get users and whatnot, right? Because I was not even gonna watch the ceremony, quite frankly, because I didn't think I was gonna win. But yeah, so I think it's like incredible what you can actually do in a month, and like if people take the leap to come to KL in September for open campus, like I think they can do a lot in terms of like putting themselves in a great position.
Awesome. Yeah. So the program, at least this upcoming season two, is through the month of September. and the applications close August 8th, which is in 2 days. um,
Yeah.
and
I
what I
mean,
love on your
we
website,
might
you're
extend the
saying that
deadline, but yeah, we'll
okay,
see.
yeah, it is you're offering housing as well, so you're really just making it super easy for people to apply and create no excuses.
Yeah. So literally you just have to make it to Kuala Lumpur and like the only cost that you'll have is like transport and food, which in Malaysia is like incredibly cheap and amazing food. So like great deal, honestly. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. So, what was the first one like? What were some of the maybe, more compelling products that people built and just the overall vibe that was there?
It's amazing vibes. I mean, like, I think initially we had like a lot of blockchain and Web3 related projects um, that ultimately got funded and that. But yeah, there's just like so many different kinds of app ideas and verticals that people are exploring. I think what's interesting about that as well is like also experience like experimenting with the distribution of things and like there's just like a lot that can happen when you get a lot of creative people in a space together and they're just working on growing all the time, right? Like there's just ideas that have flown around, like inspiration is just around, right? And I think that's super important, like to be inspired, to be around people. I think it like for I you know this, like working at home alone is very different for when you go somewhere and like you're working around like you go to a co-working
Yeah,
space, right? It just
sure.
hits different. Like you feel like, oh my God, everyone's working around me. I gotta figure it out. Like, you feel kind of stupid not like working like as hard as everyone around you. So yeah, that's the kind of vibe, like but in a positive way. It's not like there's no like toxic productivity. It's kind of like all in the spirit of like, these are like builders who are obsessed with their like project and idea and now you're surrounded with these kinds of people and everyone's kind of helping each other like grow and that's kind of the vibe that we on. Everyone gets super connected. We do cool stuff as well, like excursions and you know play sports and things like that. Like we have a life outside of
Awesome.
building apps. So yeah, it's just like a whole experience in itself. Yeah,
Wait, you have a life outside of building apps?
hard to believe, but we need to touch grass sometimes and yeah.
Well, I saw that you're a marathon runner.
I mean, I've run one. I've run
Okay,
one.
okay, but you like to
I
run.
haven't I've gone into running like yeah, and I ran a marathon like a couple months ago and I've extremely traumatized, honestly. I haven't actually gone for a run since, but I joined like a touch rugby league, so I've been playing touch rugby recently and that yeah. I do like running though.
Extremely
Running's a good shout.
traumatized.
By the marathon, dude, it's pain like ooh, it was painful.
Wow.
Have you
Yeah,
run a
I used to
marathon?
run. I've never done a marathon, but I did used to run, but I've never subjected myself to that type of intense experience.
Yeah, I just feel like however much you train, like it is like just a tall task to finish. So glad I finished, but it was like a whole thing. Yeah.
Good for you. That's
Thank you,
awesome.
man.
Well, the open economy or the program is called Open Campus. It sounds really exciting. Hopefully, maybe I get to see you there. Um,
Yeah, it would be awesome.
and yeah, I want to. I guess so. You're one of the more prolific vibe coders. People have different, I guess, levels of experience with vibe coding. Maybe they've dabbled in it, maybe created one or two projects, but like you've really, it seems to me like you've really oriented yourself around this. Of course, you won third place in the Bolt Hackathon, so you have some
That
credentials
helps.
now, which is awesome. Tell me about your process. I mean, do you use? And obviously you've used Bolt. What are some of the main tools and like techniques, I suppose, that are part of how you create your apps?
Gotcha. I think for me, it all starts with okay, which platform am I using? And that goes into like after all this experimentation with like different like app building platforms, I've kind of like gotten a good sense of like which platform would be better for which idea, right? Like we all know Lovable is like really good with the UI, UX and whatnot. So I usually tend to go to Lovable for like simpler app ideas that I just want to quickly get out and like will just look nice and whatnot, like rameneconomy.com. use Lovable for that. That's just like, quick, simple app, it's like two pages or whatnot, simple logic. And I just want it to look nice, go for Lovable. If I'm gonna create like a more intense, like for example, I'm creating this like finance tracking mobile app, right? I would go to Bolt. Like Bolt is like very powerful in itself, and I guess like over this month of this hackathon, become pretty good at using Bolt. So yeah, it starts off with like which platform am I going to use to build this app, and then I use Claude and ChatGPT in tandem to develop and refine a PRD. I think that's really important. A product requirement document. I think nobody should be starting to build an app if they don't have a PRD, because it's usually like what you use to inform your first prompt, but also it just like helps you flesh out everything that you might need within this app, right? Because I think like if you're new to development, new to vibe coding, new to building apps, like there's a lot of things that go into an app or might be required in an app that you've just not thought about, and Claude or ChatGPT or whatnot you want to use Grok can help fill in those gaps, right? And that's really helpful to just be informed on from the get-go. So I really think it's important people get a PRD going, and it's nothing that you can't generate on Claude or ChatGPT, right? So it's nothing you need to rake your brain over, but it is something you need to refine. Yeah, and then boom, I just go into the apps and start building. Yeah.
So, product requirement document, what are some of the things in it that you would find?
So in a product requirement document, you're usually finding like technical requirements, like, what should be in the front end, what should be in the back end. It might describe the logic that's happening between different components. Like it would even include like different components that this app needs and requires. Um, a PRD generated by Claude or ChatGPT might even divide the PRD into like what are MVP um, features and what are like nice to have features. That's really great because ultimately I think when you're building any app, you should scope it out, right? And I think no one should start off with trying to do anything more than building an MVP, essentially. Focus on one feature, maybe two, three features if you're feeling a bit extra. But if you're like just from the get-go trying to build like a fully featured, enterprise ready app, like you're kind of setting yourself up to fail. Like I think with these platforms, it's really much better for you to incrementally add features, incrementally like build up the app and go from there. Like don't try to in one prompt build three features in one, like one shot three features. That's really tough. You're gonna run into lots of bugs. So I would say like work on getting one feature working in the right direction and like working well. It's not breaking when you try to, go through the flow, and then you add on top of your app iteratively.
Mm-hmm. So, starting simple, that makes sense. One of the things that I struggle with is, just the ease of creation. Well, you did make a good point earlier. Development has never been easier, but it doesn't mean it's
Yeah,
easy. And that's something
yeah,
that I wanted to just reinforce and agree with, because perhaps there's a misconception that, AI just makes producing apps trivial, and it's really far from that. And perhaps one day it will be. I mean, I think that's clearly the goal and the trend, that
yeah.
we'll have a prompt or a thought, and the whole thing will just be marvelously perfectly constructed for us. I think is like the end goal,
Yeah,
which would be awesome, but it's unclear exactly how long it'll take to get there.
yep,
But so the speed and ease has never been higher. It's uh, still difficult and requires tremendous perseverance, especially on the more like technical side of things, on like backend and user accounts and payments. That's like what I've found in my experience. But how do you stay focused? I just get excited about ideas like, oh, I want to try it, and like make it. I mean, you've made
yeah.
multiple projects. We just looked at all of them. Um, this is something that I'm struggling with, and I'm just like curious if you have any recent thoughts as to like, okay, well, like I can make a bunch of projects now, but I can only have so much time in the day, and it
Gotcha.
still requires time for prompting and all that. So yeah, how are you managing that?
Like these are like good problems to have, right? Like you have all the tools and everything to build an app. You have like too many ideas. Like these are great problems. And I think like it's all a matter of prioritization at the end of the day. Like what are you prioritizing? Like are you prioritizing like learning? So you want to build like cool apps and like, or are you prioritizing growing? Personally, I prioritize monetizing. like
Hmm.
so from the get-go in terms of like prioritizing like what apps like I'm gonna focus on and build out. Like ultimately, when I'm thinking of like app ideas, I'm already thinking about the monetization from the get-go. I'm already thinking about the distribution from the get-go. Like if we take SiteSnap as like an example, yes, solves my own problem, validated. It probably solves like a lot of people's problems as well. But I thought about the pricing model from the beginning. I thought about how to distribute this app from the beginning, right? Like I have like a whole TikTok strategy lined out for this, right? So I planned that all out from the from the beginning, right? Like as if you're gonna start a business, right? Like I created maybe a business canvas of sorts in my mind of like, okay, this is like a viable business. Like this is a reason why I would pursue it and, you know, put my time into it. And it's ultimately like a cost benefit analysis, right? Like I could work on this idea and if it works out, it could make this much money. Or I could work on this idea and if it works out, I could make this much money, right? Oh, and how much time is it going to take for me to build this idea versus this idea? And like, yeah, then you start like whittling down like what you actually should be prioritizing. Um, so that's a little bit into like my thought process into like what am I working on to begin with? Yeah.
Great. That's super helpful. So, thinking of the business model and the marketing and distribution strategy from the beginning alongside, what are the product features? That makes a lot of sense. And something that probably could invest more of my energy and thoughts into. I think I tend to like get really excited about the product concept, but you're right
All
in
right.
that um, you know, in order to afford to be able to work on something, if you're not doing it just for fun as like a hobby thing, of course it needs to be making money in some way. And it's interesting how the introduction and popularity of vibe coding has introduced new types of problems where, okay,
Definitely.
the ease of creation has increased, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the thing that you are making is going to be monetizable easily, distributable easily, fundable easily. And you're sparking a new idea for me of like, maybe there's an all-in-one type of solution for, okay, for vibe coders where you have this great idea, but how can we make sure that it's something that has a solid business model behind it, and can actually have customers.
Yep. I think it's obviously like I have a lot of prior like experience that helps inform like my thinking in that direction. But I think that's something that definitely a lot of people sort of need help with and like pointing in like different directions. I suppose like it really requires a lot of, I think it does require a bunch of thought like into it and like planning and whatnot, but that's all things you learn by experience. So if there was something that helped people do that, it would I think it would bang. Yeah, I think it would do pretty great. But
Yeah.
honestly, but I think like for me, what's exciting about vibe coding as a whole, because like I also don't, for me, monetization is important, of course, but I think like big picture, like I think vibe coding is like super exciting because just turns everyone into a builder, right? And not everyone needs to be a product founder or you know a startup founder or whatnot or building to monetize. Like I'm excited about like teachers who can build games for like their students and help them like learn in a more engaging way, right? Or like someone who's just in their office and like they're not like trying to obviously start a startup or whatnot, but you know, they have a problem at work. They can fix, you know, this problem by building an app and they're just like that much more value add to their organization as a whole. But the
Yeah.
teacher example is very exciting for me. I think that's super cool. But you know, there's just like everyone becomes a builder. Like what kind of world does that look like? And that's like a food for me to be optimistic, really. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I love that line of thinking. Let's just imagine maybe 5 years from now what the world could look like. And I mean, honestly, we could even do like 1 or 2, 3 years, but maybe 5 years
Yeah.
is kind of an interesting point
Mhm.
where, the tools of today in 2025 are already quite advanced, actually, and they've rapidly progressed in the past just even year, 6 months. I mean, it's honestly, as you know, and those listening and watching, paying any attention to AI and part of the AI
Yeah.
community is just profoundly, bizarrely fast. Yesterday was a great example with the GPT open source, and then you have like Genie 3 and uh, what was there's 11 music all in the same day. It's like, and
It's
we're
hard to keep
expecting
up,
GPT
honestly.
5 on
Yeah.
possibly like Thursday or Friday. Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, like, what does that feel like for you? Someone, I'm sure you're paying attention to AI news. Like, what is it like to be a builder in this space and just having things change so and evolve and improve so quickly?
I think it's why I love being in this space because it's like perpetually um, exciting, like perpetually changing. There's always something new for you to learn and keep you on your toes. So I think that's amazing because yeah, I would hate to like feel that I'm in an industry or space that's getting complacent. So to feel like I am like on the cutting edge and like sort of exploring these new frontiers, I think it's super exciting. Like I'm sure you feel it this way, or many people have said it before. It's like right now it feels like for people who are like very into it and like very aware and making the most out of like what's going on, it feels like a gold rush. It feels like, like the possibilities are endless and everyone has these tools at their fingertips. But when you zoom out, the reality is like people are only scratching the surface of what AI is currently able to do, right? Like we're building apps. Lots of people are like XFeed and like people we follow are building apps and doing loads, right? But you talk to your family members, you talk to like your friends casually or whatnot, like they're using ChatGPT for like the most basic things, like correcting grammar, which I do as well. But like, you know what I'm saying? People are scratching the surface of what they can do with AI, let alone building apps, right? So I think there's
Mm-hmm.
like a whole period of time where like, the world around us, us nerds sort of catch up to, like what they're able to do with AI, which is happening. It's like an inevitability. But for us, like who are really stuck in the space and doing loads with it and keeping up with everything, like it's just opportunities everywhere. So I think it's a really exciting time for people I almost feel like an evangelist whenever I'm around people, right? Because I'm just like, you guys
Yeah.
just don't
Well, you
understand how
are, of course.
amazing this is, right? Yeah, it's I mean, in a good way, right? Like, because honestly, like, if I can get one person to just like check it out, because it's not like they don't want to. People are always asking, like, oh, which AI should I use, or send me some things I can play around with, right? Um, I'm bullish on those people, bullish on those people who are like open to try new things, obviously.
Yeah, it's a really great point around, we're, I mean, especially the two of us, and I would imagine the people, the guests on this podcast, were hopefully super deep into vibe coding and like interested in building actively in AI. We take for granted, right, that um, just our level of familiarity with these tools and all the news going on. But you're completely right. Like, probably the vast majority, I don't know, 99% of everyone else on Earth has either no idea what's going on or just some more reduced version of it. And I think that'll change. Just going back to my like thought experiment for the next say 5 years or so.
Oh yeah.
Imagine like what does Lovable look like? What does Bolt look like? What does Cursor look like in 5 years? At the rate of change of these AI models and just the UI UX paradigms, I think will probably look a lot different
Oh
than
yeah.
just chat. I'm sure chat will still be around. Um, Very likely. I don't think that's going away as like an interface paradigm necessarily, but um, yeah, I think it's fair to say like the vibe coding process will be more accurate. It will be much faster.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
Probably hopefully have to do less manual connecting things. But I think the impact on the culture and just people that aren't obsessed with I can see it being at the level of like a YouTube or Instagram, where there are these social platforms that people use all the time that are just completely pervasive throughout culture and not really given any second thought. I mean, there was a period of time, I suppose, like prior to, I don't know, like 2000 2007, 2010, early, like around that period where like YouTube and Instagram were just like barely, barely a thing. But today, 2025, uh,
Everything.
pretty much anyone with a computer or phone, which is almost anyone, uses them all the time, right? They're just
Yep.
a fact of life in a certain kind of way. And I can see that ability for vibe coding to play a similar role. I mean, maybe we won't call it that. Maybe it'll take on a new name or brand or of some sort. But
Sure.
hopefully not. I
Context
mean,
engineering.
this podcast, yeah, this podcast is called vibe coding, so that'd be cool if that stays around.
Yeah, if it's stuck,
Which
you
I
know.
think, yeah, I think it's stuck. I think that that's fair to say, in a big way. And so, yeah, like what does that look like? I mean, just kind of playing into that, what does that look like for, so people have this ability to really create software at will without being engineers. Like that's pretty amazing.
Yep. I think it's oh, how does this change the world? Um, I don't know. I have like pretty like extreme case of where I feel like things are going, um, which we can talk about. But like in the next 3 years, 5 years, where like everyone has these tools and everyone's a builder, like I actually do think like we will see a lot more people. We'll see a rise in builders, and we'll also see a rise in content creators. I think these are the two main don't even know what you would call these like occupations that are gonna increase like in a big way, and like they'll be deriving the most, like generating and like acquiring the most value ultimately. Like I think like we already see it in content creators, streamers, like how they generate value and whatnot. I think like builder, like the more builders we have, like that'll also be a thing. I think we're gonna see a big uptick in both of those things like over the next few years. But I feel like where we're barreling towards is a place where ultimately people are not going to need to do things for sustenance. Like we won't need to build apps, for example, necessarily because we need to make apps to make money, for example. Like I think we like AI is taking us to a place where UBI becomes like a very viable policy, universal basic income. Like right now, it's just like impossible to think that that's even a possibility that UBI could be a thing. But I think in a world where AI is primarily doing like producing most of the economic value, right? And there's a surplus of economic value that AI is generating on behalf of everyone. There's just like not enough jobs for people to do. And there's just enough economic value that's being generated that can be distributed to like the rest of the population. I think people will have the freedom to actually explore whatever they want to do, fulfillment in life. If you want to be an artist, you can go do so, and you won't have to be starving because there's literally AIs creating like way too much economic value. If you want to be an app builder and create value that way, you can, and you don't have to do it in a way where you're starving either. Like that kind of. I feel like we're barreling towards that. Like, I mean, that's a very optimistic future in my opinion, but like, it's one where I would love to live in because like, I like right now everyone's in this rat race, right? Like loads of people in this
Yeah.
rat race just doing stuff that they don't want to do, uh, isn't
Yep.
fulfilling. It'd be amazing
Yep.
to imagine a world where AI is just enabling people to find fulfillment.
Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective and vision. That's one that I resonate with and one that I think about and seek to promote as well. So it's encouraging to hear you say that. I'm reminded of, Elon Musk talks about this age of abundance that is possible with AI. And I agree with him. I think that, from today's perspective, it's like, I also feel a certain level of like skepticism about it. And like, is that really
Yeah,
possible? What would that look like? We do live in a rat race. We get to earn a living, like money is the name of the game in this life right now. But I think, for anyone, right? But I do see a future where you're completely right in AI. The way things are going now, if AI is capable of producing or doing cognitive and physical labor at the level of a human, or if not better, and you scale that up,
Yeah.
just logically speaking, right, given enough time within our lifetimes, probably in the not too distant future, like we're not talking about us being old men. I'm talking about maybe in the next several decades, perhaps,
Yeah.
right? um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Then
I mean,
okay,
I think that
what's
vision's
what's
like
left for
a
humans?
right. Exactly. That's the very interesting question, right? Like, and I feel like this sort of future is, like you said, decades off of 10, like a decade or so off, right? And I think like that takes me back anyway to this like 3 year, 5 year horizon where like, what do you do in the next 2, 3, 5 years, right? And I'm very into Raoul Paul's sort of a thought on it, which is that, it's impossible. It's so hard for us to even imagine what the world will be like in 5 years. Like it was so hard. We couldn't have imagined what life would be like now. Like us being able to vibe code and do all this like a year ago was not even like possible. Like for me, I was like not even considering it, right? Like it was not a thought in my mind that like I could be able to code apps like this, right? Like I knew people were generating code on ChatGPT, on Claude and that, but the way that we're like Bolt and Lovable and all these other platforms are able to stitch that together for you, is incredible, right? That's something I couldn't have imagined a year ago. And just to think like, I can't even think like in a year from now how, and these things happen so fast. So like a year from now, 2, 3 years from now. So like 5 years, it's so hard to imagine what that future will be. So Raoul Paul just says, make as much money as possible in the next 5 years, so that you're in the best position to do whatever, however life looks like in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Makes
And it's
sense.
a gold rush now,
Yeah.
so might as well make the most of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned UBI. That's something that I've paid a lot of attention to since Andrew Yang brought it to my attention
Yeah,
in 2019, and my former girlfriend as well was big into that. Um, but I'm I think like some form of UBI is probably gonna happen. It's unclear exactly how it'll play out, and if that's just gonna be like another form of communism, which is like I'm kind of hesitant of, and people will always need some type of purpose and meaning beyond just getting a paycheck every month. And
for
that's
sure.
even something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Sam Altman has said, and he's actually recently expressed some skepticism or more doubt about UBI more recently, as someone that I think had funded some of these studies around it.
Yeah, with
And
WorldCoin, right? Like,
yeah, well, yeah, and WorldCoin is a whole other thing that
is
I'm
a
just
whole
like,
thing
oh
in
gosh, this
itself,
thing
but
is just, yeah, the orb. I'm not into the orbs. Just the
yeah,
name, man. I don't know. That feels like very. It's like I get like I'm
it's a
excited about
tough
AI,
sell,
and then
I must say.
yeah, and then I see that all
Yeah,
this orb business, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like I get the premise of it. It's one of those like very kind of quirky intellectual exercises of like, okay, we see this future of the need for proving you're human in a world where AI is pervasive, and I like that makes sense. Like I actually get that, but the practicality, and just the visual of like, okay, you're gonna scan my iris, and
yeah,
we're gonna give all these like poor people around the world in developing countries some like cash incentive, or it's not cash, it's
that
crypto
data.
crypto incentive, yeah, for your personal private iris. And they can make claims about the security of that all day, but it's just still there's just something inherently icky about it that I
Yeah,
think a lot of people would agree with me on. And I don't
I
know, in
know.
some ways it
There's
feels
loads
like
of
taking
people who agree
advantage of
with you.
people. Yeah. So okay.
Yeah,
It sounds like you feel a similar way. Um, but
yeah. I mean, it's a tough sell. I mean, like, it's amazing that they have enough money to just run these experiments. But yeah, I think it's just didn't work out like in terms of optics and things. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not
ironically,
scanning my eye.
optics.
I'm not letting them scan my
Yeah,
eye. That's
I'm
not
not. I
happening
know. I'm
anytime
not.
soon.
I'm not into it either. I mean, similarly, it's like a kind of the same
Yeah.
thing with the Amazon One Palm scanner that you see in Whole Foods. It's like super cool
Sure.
technology. Like, good job. Like, you invented something that is pretty cool, but like from like a tech perspective, but not cool from like a I don't want to give you my palm to pay for anything. Like, you're not really solving a problem that's real. Um, the tap to pay with my debit card is quite all right. There's no issue with that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like what
I
are you
know.
giving up for the sake of convenience? But it's like barely even anything convenient, given that I have my card and my phone. Like, I have two perfectly good forms of payment in my pocket, which then suggests to me like if you're not solving a real problem there, then like why are you really introducing this? That's what where I get kind of like creeped out by that kind of thing.
I think you're touching on a great point about like why this product, honestly, and why
Yeah,
why does it have to be built this way? And I think like for what's crazy is those things are built with loads of like very experienced product people, and much research has been done, like that goes into those products, and like ultimately like when they come out, it's like, oh, doesn't really land as they probably imagined. But I think like with vibe coders, like who obviously like if you're starting to vibe code and now you're thinking about products and apps and such, there's just so many things. And we've gone through a lot of things that now vibe coders need to consider, right? Like API security. They need to think about like how do they prioritize their what idea they're building. But yeah, like this, like do people like would you even use this app? Like I feel like some people don't even stop to think like would I use this app? Like can I put myself in someone else's shoes and see if I personally would use this app, like pay for an app. First of all, that's the other thing. Like, would someone pay for this app? Like I like talking to my partner about it because they like don't pay for anything. Like they don't want to pay for any subscription and whatnot. So that's like a very high bar if they're like, oh, I would pay for it. Like, like even in your own life, right? There's very few things you actually pay a subscription for, right? Like it has to bring you real value. So like
yep.
actually, that's a great question to ask yourself. Like, would you pay for this like subscription? And like, would you pay for it once or would you pay for it over and over? And, like that kind of thought is like super important. Like, and I think like if you dial into that, like, oh, you get into pricing and all those other thoughts, like, yeah, then it's like you start getting to like a good idea of whether this idea is viable or not, as well. But no, some people wouldn't even pay for their own apps. It's crazy. Like,
That's a really good
yeah,
question and metric, as you're
yeah,
building. Would I pay for this? Especially in the age where there are so many SaaS products and new AI subscriptions, increasingly so with,
mhm,
the max
yeah.
plans and all that. So it can get
Oh,
expensive and,
yeah,
it's a tough economy out there right now. But I think also you can, as a builder, you can kind of bullshit yourself and like, yeah, I would pay for this. But ultimately you'll
yeah,
really find out once you launch it, and you get people to part with their money, hopefully.
yeah. I mean, I think people should just build in public a lot more. I feel like that really helps in terms of like feedback, like on your ideas, your thoughts, like these kinds of things. And like, because ultimately, if you're asking your friends and family, like they're just gonna say it's
Sure.
nice, great idea, you're doing so awesome. But like nobody cares about you on Twitter, or and even less so on Reddit. Reddit's ruthless. So if you really want some like real feedback of a harsh variety, you go on Reddit and like, try to share your 2 cents and you get torn apart. So, and that's what you need, honestly. I think people are like scared, honestly, like they're scared of like they want to build this app, they want to get it out there and whatnot, but they're scared. Like they don't know what like it's actually like to get feedback from users and feel that responsibility of delivering for users and getting that feedback, right? It's maybe not something they experience in their life usually. But that's a very real part of being a founder, especially someone who's bootstrapped or someone who's a vibe coder who's just building an app in general. Like you need real feedback. You need like, real feedback that's actually gonna be constructive and help you improve. Because ultimately, like I'm guessing if you're early, like a new vibe coder and whatnot, you're learning. And I think you should just maximize how much you can learn. Ultimately, and make mistakes. That's gonna happen. But ultimately, if you're learning and like you're actually getting great feedback and you're progressing accordingly, like I think you're on the right path.
Well, I think that's some good advice to end on. This has been a really great conversation. Appreciate your time. And um, where can people learn more about your apps that you're building and in yourself?
No, thanks for inviting me and thanks for the time as well. Like, really appreciate this conversation because it's like I always enjoy talking to like-minded people and people who are building as well. But I think the best place for people to follow me and find out more about what I'm doing is to follow me on X. So I'm 0x Tommy Thomas on X and most platforms for that matter. But I think X is really where I'm tweeting. I'm doing loads. I'm doing more video, so I'm gonna be posting a lot more videos. I'm keen on like making a lot more videos, helping founders, and sharing my insights on building and sharing my process as well. I think video is the medium at the like and will continue to be the medium. So yeah, I think I encourage a lot of people to lean into that as well. But yeah, 0x Tommy Thomas on X, and yeah, and if you're keen on Open Campus, apply as well, like or follow us anyway to keep posted because we'll have many more seasons and many more opportunities.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time, Tommy. This has been great. For those listening and watching, please subscribe if you haven't already. And you can go to vibe-coding.fm for the latest episodes as well as a whole automated news platform all about vibe coding and a bunch of resources for you if you're curious. Until next time, we'll see you soon.